The wedding bouquet slipped from Sienna's trembling hands as she collapsed against the altar. And when James caught her, his bride of exactly 4 minutes, a prescription bottle tumbled from her dress pocket. Morphine, stage 4. Patient, Sienna Marsh. Prescribed 3 months ago. His eyes met hers, and in that moment, he realized the woman he just married had been planning her own funeral longer than she'd been planning their wedding. But let me take you back, because 6 months earlier, Sienna Marsh wasn't thinking about weddings. She was thinking about funerals. The fluorescent lights of County General's hospice wing hummed overhead as she checked Mrs. Patterson's morphine drip for the last time. 28 years old, drowning in student debt, and watching people die for $12 an hour. That was Sienna's life. But it wasn't the debt that kept her up at night. It wasn't even her own diagnosis, the one she'd been hiding for 2 months. The stage 4 pancreatic cancer the ER doctor had delivered like a death sentence between her double shifts. It was her sister. 15-year-old Riley needed a kidney transplant. $50,000 they didn't have. And Sienna had maybe 8 months left to figure it out. That's when James Hartwell walked into her life. Literally walked in to room 304 where his grandfather was spending his final days. 34 years old, worth $3 billion, and he looked at Sienna like she was the only person in the room who understood what it meant to watch someone slip away. "My grandfather says you're the only one who doesn't treat him like he's already dead," James said one evening, his voice rough with exhaustion. Sienna managed to smile, ignoring the sharp pain that had become her constant companion. Because he's not. Not yet. Over the next 3 weeks, James came every day. And somewhere between midnight conversations and shared coffee that tasted like regret, something shifted. He talked about his company, the pressure, the loneliness of having everything except what mattered. She talked about Riley, about dreams she'd never get to see, about the cruel irony of spending your life caring for the dying when you're dying yourself. Except she didn't tell him that last part. The night his grandfather passed, James made Sienna an offer that should have sounded insane. "Marry me." She actually laughed. "What?" 6 months. A contract marriage. My grandfather's will requires me to be married to access the family trust. Old money. Old rules. You'd get $5 million. No strings attached. After 6 months, we divorce. You keep the money and we both walk away. $5 million. Riley's transplant, her family's debts erased, a future for the people she'd leave behind. But here's what James didn't know, what nobody knew except Sienna and her oncologist. She'd been lying about those headaches, those stomach bugs, those moments she'd disappeared to throw up in the staff bathroom. Every smile she gave him was borrowed time. Every conversation was stolen from a future that was already written. She had 8 months left to live. His contract was for 6. She'd be dead before the ink dried on the divorce papers. "I'll do it," she whispered. And just like that, Sienna Marsh became a woman with a plan. Take the money, save Riley, and disappear before James ever discovered what she really was. A dying girl playing pretend in a billionaire's world. The engagement was a whirlwind. Designer dresses that hung loose on her shrinking frame, Society events where she'd excuse herself to take pain medication in bathroom stalls. James's world of wealth and power, and Sienna's growing realization that she was falling for a man she'd agreed to deceive. But someone else was watching. Someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Carolyn Hartwell, James's stepmother, the woman who'd been counting on that family trust for herself. "You're not what I expected," Carolyn said at their first meeting, her smile sharp as glass. "James usually has better taste." Sienna felt the words like a slap, but she held her ground. "Good thing I'm only temporary then." That's when she should have seen it. The flash of calculation in Carolyn's eyes. The way she'd looked at Sienna like a problem to be solved. 3 months into the engagement, 5 months left on Sienna's unspoken clock, the pain got worse. She'd started researching hospice care for herself, making plans James couldn't know about, writing letters to Riley she'd never send while she was alive. That's when the private investigator's report landed on James's desk. But it wasn't James who opened it. It was Carolyn. And there, in black and white, was everything. Sienna's medical records. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Terminal. 6 to 8 months from initial diagnosis. Current status? 5 months in. Carolyn should have told James. Any decent person would have. Instead, she smiled, and she made a call. "I need you to understand something," Carolyn said, cornering Sienna in the hospital parking lot after one of her secret chemo appointments. "I know what you're hiding, and if you don't want James to know that you're dying, that you married him as some kind of charity case, you'll do exactly what I say." Sienna's blood ran cold. "What do you want?" "After the wedding, you'll transfer your settlement to an offshore account I control. Then you'll disappear. No drama, no deathbed confessions. You'll die quietly somewhere else, and James never has to know he fell for a ghost." If you can't stand people who exploit the dying just to steal what isn't theirs, let me know in the comments. Type, "Nobody deserves that." Because what Carolyn did next made everything so much worse. Sienna had 3 months left, maybe less. The chemo wasn't working. It was never meant to cure her, just buy time she no longer had. Every day with James felt like theft. Every kiss, every laugh, every moment he looked at her like she was his future. It was all built on a lie that was killing her faster than the cancer. But she made a deal with the devil, and Carolyn made sure she remembered it. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sienna made her decision. She was going to tell James everything. The cancer, the prognosis, the real reason she'd said yes. He deserved the truth, even if it destroyed them both. She found him in his study, practicing his vows. "James, I need to tell you something." He interrupted softly. "I know." Her heart stopped. You know?" "About Riley. About the money. About why you really said yes." He turned to face her, and his eyes were devastated. My head of security flagged your sister's medical records during the standard background check. I've known since the beginning, Sienna. The room spun. Then why? Because I was falling in love with you. And I thought if I gave you time, maybe you'd fall in love with me too. Maybe the reason wouldn't matter anymore. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt her carefully constructed world shattering. Because he knew about Riley, but he didn't know about her. And if he knew half the truth and still loved her, how could she possibly tell him the rest? Do you love me? The truth was in her throat. I love you, and I'm dying, and in 3 months, you're going to bury me. But Carolyn's words echoed. You'll die quietly somewhere else. Yes, she breathed. I love you. The first honest thing she'd said in months, and the cruelest, because it came with an expiration date. The wedding was beautiful. Too beautiful for something that was supposed to end. Sienna wore white, knowing she'd be buried in it. Riley sat in the front row, healthy and glowing after her transplant, paid for by an anonymous donor who was really James. 3 months of borrowed happiness. That's all Sienna had left. But as she walked down that aisle, something inside her broke. The pain wasn't just physical anymore. It was the weight of loving someone you're leaving, of standing in a church making promises about forever when you've got weeks. That's when the morphine bottle fell. In James's face? God, his face. The moment he understood. The moment everything he thought he knew shattered into something so much worse. Sienna, his voice cracked as he picked up the bottle, reading the label over and over like the words might change. Stage 4? 3 months ago? You've been dying this whole time? The church went silent. 300 guests watching a marriage implode in real time. I was going to tell you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I swear I was. When? The devastation in his voice destroyed her. When were you going to tell me? After you were gone? Were you just going to disappear and let me think you left? I wanted to protect you. Protect me? He grabbed her shoulders, gentle despite his anguish. Sienna, I would have given up everything, the money, the company, everything. I would have spent every second we had left making you happy. And you were going to rob me of that? That's when Carolyn made her move. James, darling, clearly this woman has been deceiving you from the start. We should... You knew. James's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He was staring at his stepmother with an expression Sienna had never seen. Pure rage. That phone call last week, the one where you said everything was taken care of, you knew about Sienna's cancer, and you said nothing. Carolyn's mask slipped, just for a second. But it was enough. Prove it, she hissed. If you believe love is worth fighting for, even when time is running out, hit that subscribe button. Comment "Love Conquers" if you're rooting for them. Because the next decision James made changed everything. James turned to Sienna, and she saw something in his eyes she didn't expect. Not pity, not even anger anymore. Determination. How long do you have? James, How long? 3 months, maybe less. He took her hand right there in front of everyone. Then we have 3 months, and I'm going to spend every second of them fighting for you, with you. You don't understand. It's terminal. The doctors said. The doctors don't know what I'm capable of. His jaw set in that stubborn way she'd come to love. There is an experimental treatment in Switzerland. My company's been funding it. It's risky, and it's only shown a 12% success rate, but it's a chance. 12% isn't. 12% is everything when the alternative is 0. He pressed his forehead to hers. Marry me. Again. For real this time. Not for 6 months. For however long we get. They should have known it wouldn't be that simple. 2 days after the wedding, after they'd actually said their vows again, this time meaning every word, James's lawyer delivered the bombshell. There's a problem with the experimental treatment. Sienna felt her newly rekindled hope crumble. What kind of problem? It requires a specific genetic match, a living donor. The procedure extracts modified stem cells from a healthy donor, but there's a 40% chance of severe complications for the donor, paralysis, organ failure, and a 20% chance they don't survive at all. James didn't hesitate. Test me. No, Sienna's voice was steel. Absolutely not. Sienna, I'm not letting you die for me. That's not love, James. That's suicide. That's when the lawyer cleared his throat. Actually, Mr. Hartwell isn't a genetic match, but we found someone who is. He slid a file across the table. Carolyn Hartwell. The room went dead silent. Sienna's hands trembled as she opened the file. And there it was, the truth that changed everything. Carolyn isn't just your stepmother. 29 years ago, she gave up a baby for adoption, a daughter. The adoption was supposed to be closed, but I pulled the records. He looked at Sienna. She's your biological mother. The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. That's impossible. My mother adopted you when you were 3 days old. Carolyn was 17 from a wealthy family who forced her to give you up. She's known who you were since James started dating you. That's why she tried to drive you away. Not because she wanted his money, because she couldn't face what she'd done. Couldn't face you. Sienna felt like she was drowning. The woman who'd blackmailed her, threatened her, tried to destroy her, was her mother? Does she know? Sienna whispered. That she's the match? The lawyer nodded. She's known for 3 weeks. They found Carolyn in the hospital chapel. She looked smaller somehow, older. When she saw Sienna, something in her face crumbled. I know what you're going to ask, Carolyn said before Sienna could speak. And the answer is no. I can't do it. I can't be your donor. The rejection should have hurt. Instead, Sienna felt something unexpected, understanding. Because you're afraid, Sienna said softly. Not of dying, of living, of being my mother. Carolyn's eyes filled with tears. I gave you up to give you a better life. And look what happened. You got sick anyway. You almost died protecting a sister who isn't even... She stopped, hand over her mouth. Who isn't even yours? Sienna finished. I know. Riley and I aren't blood. My parents adopted her too, but she's still my sister. Family isn't about DNA, Carolyn. It's about showing up. I don't know how to show up, Carolyn whispered. I've spent 30 years running away. James stepped forward. Then maybe it's time to stop. What happened next wasn't a miracle. It wasn't some Hollywood ending where everything magically worked out. Comment true love if you believe some loves are worth any price. The choice Carolyn made, there's no coming back from. Carolyn agreed to the procedure, not easily, not without fear, but she agreed. I can't give you your childhood back, she told Sienna the night before the surgery. I can't undo 30 years of absence, but maybe I can give you a future. The surgery took 14 hours. Sienna woke up 3 days later to James holding her hand, tears streaming down his face. The treatment worked. The cancer's responding. They think, God, Sienna, they think you might actually make it. And Carolyn? His smile was complicated. She's alive, but there were complications. She'll need years of physical therapy. She might never walk properly again. Sienna closed her eyes, feeling the weight of it. A mother she never knew sacrificing everything for a daughter she'd given away. I need to see her. 6 months later, Sienna stood in the garden of James's estate, their estate now, watching Riley play with the therapy dog Carolyn was using for rehabilitation. The cancer was in remission. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost, and her hair was finally growing in. But the real miracle wasn't the treatment. It was Carolyn, slowly wheeling herself across the grass to join them, a tentative smile on her face as Riley ran to help her. It was James, who'd sold half his company to pay for Carolyn's ongoing care without a second thought. It was Riley who'd insisted Carolyn move into the guest house so our family can finally be together. You know what the strangest part is? Sienna said, leaning into James as they watched their impossible, broken, beautiful family. What's that? I married you planning to die, and instead, I learned how to live. James pulled her closer. For the record, I would have loved you either way. 3 months or 300 years. That's what forever means. And even if forever had been 3 months, especially then. He kissed her forehead. Because some loves are worth fighting for, especially when, time is the one thing money can't buy. In the end, Sienna got more than she bargained for. Not just survival, but a second chance at everything. Family, love, and a future she thought she'd never see. As for whether it's a happy ending, well, she's still here to find out. And sometimes that's miracle enough.